What's up, everyone? Chris Yandel here for ChannelFireball.com, and welcome to another edition of Audio Articles, where we bring you articles written by the top Magic the Gathering pros in audio form so you can listen on the go wherever and whenever you want for free. We've got a lot of really great content on YouTube as well, so head on over to YouTube, search for Channel Fireball, and ring the bell next to the subscribe button. We want to make it as easy as possible for you to listen to the podcast, so if you ask Siri to play the most recent episode of Channel Fireball's podcast, you're all set. Today's article is written by Larsson. Yoel's going to talk about how Team Revelation and Team Genesis teamed up to develop the blue-white control deck for the Pro Tour. Thanks for tuning in today, and here is Team Revelation and Team Genesis blue-white control by Larsson. Pro Tour Dominaria is over, and we've got a new metagame on our hands, Chain Whirler and Others. I showed up with a deck from the Others category, believing that my matchup against red-black aggro was pretty good. Unfortunately, I didn't face any red-black aggro decks in the tournament, but instead various Esper, black-green, and mono-red decks. This is the list that I, Brad Nelson, BBD, and Martin Mueller, among others, played at the Pro Tour. Blue-white control. For lands, 4 Glacial Fortress, 4 Irrigated Farmland, 2 Memorial to Genius, 2 Field of Ruin, 2 Ipnu Rivulet, 5 Island, and 8 Plains. For spells, 4 Seal Away, 2 Essence Scatter, 2 Syncopate, 1 Negate, 2 Search for Escanta, 4 Disallow, 2 Glimmer of Genius, 4 Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, 2 Approach to the Second Sun, 2 Fumigate, 3 Settle the Wreckage, 2 Blink of an Eye, and 3 Cast Out. In the sideboard, 2 Negate, 3 History of Benalia, 2 Walking Ballista, 1 Sorcerer's Spyglass, 3 Torrential Gearhulk, 1 Glimmer of Genius, 1 Settle the Wreckage, 1 Evoke the Divine, and 1 Lro Dawnbringer. For those who've read previous articles about my Pro Tour decks, you may know that I enjoy exploring the origin of the deck, to understand the card choices and how the deck operates. Without that, it's hard to get a deeper understanding of a deck. As testing continued in the Revelation Genesis house, it became clear that it was hard to find brews that could survive Red-Black's Jund playstyle, with its proactive game plan and great sideboard. Going over the top of it was an option, but then it was too hard to fight blue-white control with its permission spells and card advantage. As time started to close in on us, we had to give up on brews, whether it was constructs, legendary sorceries, or even paradoxical outcome variants, and focus on the stock decks. At GP Toronto, I chose to play blue-white control with little practice leading up to the event. I chose to play the creatureless version, similar to the one that Leo Leonin played, and didn't do too well. Post-GP, I didn't like it because I felt like people played a lot better against it after it was a known strategy, and the deck was clunky. Sideboards had gotten better against it, and even Game 1 felt more awkward. It wasn't until Martin Mueller started tuning the deck, trying a few Glimmer of Genius alongside 4 Settle the Wreckage, and topping it off with Torrential Gearhulk, that I got seriously interested in the deck again. It was demolishing red-black pre-board. And I'm not talking about 70-30 stats. The deck kept going something like 15-1 and 13-2 against red-black pre-board with its new shell. All of the clunkiness of the old blue-white deck with Pull from Tomorrow was gone. First off, Settle the Wreckage is a weird card because while it gets worse if you play around it correctly, it also gets better the more of them you have, especially if your opponent is playing around it. If they attack with 2 out of their 4 creatures, you can just cast it, because if you have another one, you get the rest with that one. If your opponent only sends in 1 creature and doesn't pressure you enough, they can get punished by Glimmer of Genius instead. After you have 6 mana, Torrential Gearhulk overlaps by serving as either a Glimmer of Genius or a Settle the Wreckage, making it even harder to play around either one. The problem for the opponent is also that there's a clear time limit. They can't play too carefully and leave you to cast Glimmer of Genius and hit your land drops either. What is all this leading up to? Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. Being able to save Settle the Wreckage for when you have access to Teferi is the way you take over. Cast Teferi with 7 mana in play, uses +1 ability, draw a card, and untap 2 lands, and now your opponent is in real trouble. If Teferi stays on the battlefield, you win the game, especially with Escanta the Sunken Ruin. Attacking Teferi with everything plays right into Settle the Wreckage, but attacking it exactly with just enough lets the cards like Seal Away or Blink of an Eye defend Teferi too. There are even times where your opponent attacks Teferi with everything since they can't play around Settle the Wreckage. Or you've played a couple already and, oops, you just returned it to your hand with Blink of an Eye. Fog your opponent's attack, draw 2 extra cards, and continue to ask the same question again. How are you dealing with Teferi? With a new base in mind, we tried moving forward toward more sideboarded games. Playing the Gauntlet made us realize that Winding Constrictor decks roaming around Magic Online were a real problem for the deck post-sideboard. It was close to unbeatable. After sideboard, the Winding Constrictor decks changed in such a way that they didn't really have to attack anymore to win against you. With Glint Sleeve Siphoner and Walking Ballista already in the main, they added more Vraska Relic Seeker, Nissa Vital Force, Lifecaller's Bestiary, and Duress to help resolve their cards. With these, they started to grind better than the blue-white deck, and their smooth draws helped by Llanowar Elves and Adventurous Impulse made counterspells awkward. With Jeff Cunningham leading the trophy race, playing Black-Green Constrictor every time we played him, we were afraid that it was going to be a bigger presence than it ended up being at the Pro Tour, and we worked hard on a sideboard plan against it. It felt like we tried everything, but we couldn't find a way to keep up with their card advantage, so we finally gave up on that plan and instead just tried to win. That's how the idea of Approach to the Second Sun came to fruition. Instead of trying to play their game, we thought of the idea to just hold serve and then present them with a real clock that won the game regardless of how many cards they had in their hand. Once Green-Black Constrictor sideboards into their grindy plan, they actually lose some focus on being aggressive, removing some number of Rishkar Pima Renegade and Verdurous Gearhulk, meaning that you actually have more time, except grinding them out isn't an option. As we put this plan into motion, we started winning a lot more against it. We also figured out that having a few Approach to the Second Sun was a great tool for the mirror match in Game 1. For those who don't know, the mirror match pre-board usually plays out to the point where there are no real answers left in the deck, and having an advantage of counterspells or cards that matter that they have to be countered is a huge edge. Having 2 to 3 Approach to the Second Sun gives you just that, unlike Torrential Gearhulk, which gets Essence Scattered. Logically, Approach to the Second Sun makes sense in the new metagame. Before, proactive decks like Sultai or Temur Energy played blue, giving them access to negate and rendering Approach to the Second Sun useless post-board, which isn't the case anymore. Another upside to having Approach to the Second Sun in the main deck is that time is less of an issue if you don't have to keep putting Teferi back as your only win con. Content with our new game plan, we started working on our sideboard. Since Approach to the Second Sun gets a lot worse post-board against control, making room for cards to bring in was a headache without impacting sideboarding against other decks too much. After a lot of work, we finally managed to do it, moving the Torrential Gearhulks to the sideboard. This naturally gave us a bit worse of a matchup versus Red-Black, which at the time we felt was worth it given the upside in other matchups. Our metagame miss later became apparent during the Pro Tour with an overwhelming amount of red and red-black decks and not even close to as much black-green Constrictor and control as we assumed. But for a more diverse metagame, I like our list. Sideboarding. Against blue-white control, we're taking out 2 Fumigate, 3 Settle the Wreckage, 4 Seal Away, 2 Approach to the Second Sun, and 1 Essence Scatter. And we're putting in 3 Torrential Gearhulk, 2 Walking Ballista, 3 History of Benalia, 2 Negate, 1 Evoke the Divine, and 1 Glimmer of Genius. Red-Black Aggro. We're going to take these cards out on the draw. 2 Fumigate, 2 Approach to the Second Sun, 2 Essence Scatter, 1 Field of Ruin, 4 Disallow. And we're going to put these cards in on the draw. 3 Torrential Gearhulk, 1 Lro Dawnbringer, 1 Settle the Wreckage, 1 Sorcerer's Spyglass, 2 Walking Ballista, 1 Glimmer of Genius, and 2 Negate. On the play, we're going to take out 2 Walking Ballista, and we're going to put in 1 Field of Ruin and 1 Disallow. Green-Black Constrictor. We're going to take out 2 Syncopate, 1 Negate, 2 Blink of an Eye, 1 Seal Away, and 1 Disallow. And we're going to put in 3 Torrential Gearhulk, 1 Invoke the Divine, 2 Walking Ballista, and 1 Glimmer of Genius. Mono Red. We're going to take these cards out on the draw. 2 Search for Azcanta, 2 Syncopate, 1 Negate, and 1 Disallow. And we're going to put in 1 Lyra Dawnbringer, 2 Torrential Gearhulk, 1 Settle the Wreckage, and 2 Walking Ballista. We're going to take these cards out on the play. 2 Walking Ballista and 2 Fumigate. And we're going to replace them with 2 Search for Azcanta and 2 Syncopate. Blue-Black Midrange. We're going to take out 2 Fumigate, 3 Settle the Wreckage, 2 Blink of an Eye, and 1 Seal Away. And we're going to put in 2 Walking Ballista, 1 Sorcerer's Spyglass, 1 Glimmer of Genius, 3 Torrential Gearhulk, and 1 Negate. Blue-Green Gift. We're going to take out 1 Settle the Wreckage, 1 Negate, 2 Blink of an Eye, and 2 Approach to the Second Sun. And we're going to put in 3 Torrential Gearhulk, 1 Glimmer of Genius, 1 Evoke the Divine, and 1 Lyra Dawnbringer. White-Black Vehicles. We're going to take these cards out on the draw. 2 Fumigate, 1 Seal Away, 2 Approach to the Second Sun, 2 Disallow, and 2 Essence Scatter, and we're going to replace them with 1 Lro Dawnbringer, 3 Torrential Gearhulk, 1 Settle the Wreckage, 1 Invoke the Divine, 1 Sorcerer's Spyglass, and 2 Negate. On the play, we're going to take out 1 Disallow and put in 1 Glimmer of Genius. Mono Green Stompy. We're going to take out 2 Approach to the Second Sun, 2 Blink of an Eye, 2 Syncopate, and 1 Negate, and we're going to put in 1 Settle the Wreckage, 1 Lro Dawnbringer, 1 Invoke the Divine, 3 Torrential Gearhulk, and 1 Glimmer of Genius. That does it for this episode of Audio Articles. Make sure to head over to Channel Fireball and leave Yoel a comment about what you thought about today's article, or you can hit him up on Twitter at YoelLarsson1991. Yoel also streams on Twitch under the name Yoel Larsson. Also, make sure to check out cfbevents.com. You'll find all the information about the upcoming GPs there. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks for being with us today, and I hope to see you soon. And until then,